In late 2021 and early 2022, the world ended twice in quick succession. The moon dropped from the sky, a demon was set free, disasters both natural and unnatural plagued empires and towns alike. But these ends were not quite the end of the world, but of a world. Two separate worlds, in fact. In 2 months, as many servers ended with an apocalypse: Hermitcraft Season 8 and Empires Season 1. Despite the similarity of the setup, both of the series take much different approaches to their ending, specifically in terms of genre and of consistency. Hermitcraft Season 8 is an intensely sci-fi coded apocalypse. It did actually have some warning, with the moon getting bigger for weeks. As the hermits are regular sleepers, the increasing size of the moon was not noticed until it had roughly doubled in size, at which point Mumbo Jumbo and Grian became the first to notice. It wasn't even a definitive thing to be noticed, simply a question at first.
Is the moon big?
Is it?
From there, things progressed rapidly, as the moon getting bigger is eventually figured out to be the moon getting closer. As it does, earthquakes begin to happen, and blocks begin to fly up from their place before coming back down. But eventually, those blocks stop coming back down. As the situation gets more dire, the various hermits either hunker down or get the heck out of Dodge. Empires, on the other hand, does not have a solid coding, though it is in line with the fantasy of the rest of the series. It does not have the same build-up as Hermitcraft, happening basically in the span of one video. After Solidarity Gaming and Fwip's attempted alliance forming causes a reactor to blow up and destroy the gremlins, natural disasters start cascading around the server, such as the ocean and swamps drying up, fires across the plains and jungle areas, and various earthquakes hitting other empires. These earthquakes cracked the crystal Zornoth was being held in, releasing him upon the server as well. The emperors were given no time to prepare for these events, instead having to take what they could and run. Though both series take place in the same game, the two apocalypses take very different tones. Hermitcraft basically hits all the standards of a science fiction apocalypse and takes its tones from two different sci-fi tropes. Space horror can take a lot of different forms, one of which is something really big is falling towards Earth. The title is rather self-explanatory for this trope, though the something really big is more commonly a meteor rather than the entire moon. And, rather atypically for these kinds of stories, it does not focus on one angle of the threat. Typically, this genre will be either melancholic, focusing on an inevitable end, or more action-styled, focusing on defeating the threat in some way, usually by blowing it up. Depending on which hermit you watch and where in the finale you start, though, both of these tones can come through. The most notable example of this is Tango Tech's finale, which starts off by going up to the moon to attempt to blow it off course with rather copious amounts of TNT. However, through shenanigans that do not quite dampen the impact, he fails, and is blown off the moon himself, with his final attempt to stop it failing. Though not everyone's finale has this combination of tone, it is the combination of everyone's finales that give the tone its duality. Another thing that messes with the tone is the inclusion of the Hermatrix. The Hermatrix was an ARG element that appeared in Ren the Dog and DocM77 series that played a large part in their finales. Because, from Ren and Doc's perspective, the moon falling was not a world-ending catastrophe, but instead an attempt from an outside malevolent force. Hermitcraft Season 8 was not an actual world, but a simulation, an attempt to keep the Hermit's creativity flowing while they made the trek from Season 7 to Season 9. This narrative pulls Ren and Doc's finales specifically into a different sphere of sci-fi, the simulation narrative, most notably used in The Matrix. Given the context that this is happening in, it seems almost meta, an acknowledgement of the medium. Of course this would be a simulation narrative. All of these people are cubes. The shape of this end of the world is so different from the ends of others. The moon falling isn't even vanilla. There isn't any way for this to be real. Both types of sci-fi follow logically from the rest of the season, where the variety of tones already came through with a variety of groups, and where Ren and Doc had been doing similarly toned shenanigans all season. In an interesting contrast, Empires has a fantasy-coded apocalypse, in line with the themes of the rest of the season. There are no moons falling, no fake seasons. Empires are destroyed in quite natural ways, by fire and earthquake, as well as some more fantastical ones, such as the return of a demon, the draining of river and ocean, and the blood sheep. However, its apocalypse is also quite religiously coded. Small Christianity-influenced things tend to pop up in both seasons. For example, the typical fanon interpretation of Pixelriff's breaks from the server is as a self-exile to the desert, paralleling when similar things happen in both the Old and New Testaments. There is also the sanctification of the ruler of Gilded Lanthia, appearing as Santa Perla, Saint Pearl, in Sanctuary. However, these allusions become much more direct when the ending is taken into account. The event is referred to by at least one creator, LD Shadow Lady, as the Rapture, the term some Christians use to refer to an event at the end of the world. There are also parallels between Scott's Major's ending and Jesus Christ. As put forth by Tumblr user fandom-URL, in the finale, Scott kills himself to kill Zornoth, a demon who is possessed by the embodiment of evil to rid the world of him and his corruption, which means he sacrificed himself to save the world from sin. Scott's Major is Jesus. Though this analysis does have a joking tone, it is remarkably accurate to the coding of the finale. Empires does not have any lingering thing, nothing looming on the horizon. It is a sudden thing, the birth of a new world from the ashes of the old one. Scott's sacrifice splits the world neatly into two, the world that was haunted by the threat of a great evil, and the world that is spared that threat. However, none from the old can pass into the new, and so each ruler either dies with or stays with their empire. It is a clean end to the season, a conclusion to one of the most lasting conflicts, a simple bow on the end. Fantastical and religious coding has already been present throughout the series, and this kind of apocalypse carries this tone to its end. In addition to the variety of tones between the two series' endings, they have a remarkable difference in how they treat the importance of consistency. Both finales have the connecting thread of great catastrophe, but Empires is much more consistent in character interactions than Hermitcraft is. The Hermits have a remarkable amount of inconsistency within their finales, both internal and external. Multiple Hermits make plans that are not followed up on, such as False Symmetry and Gemini Tay, both dipping out of the bunker that they were planning for. Some even actively take two different routes, such as Azuma Void and Wells Knight. The two of them escape to the end together, but also Azuma hides in the Nether and Wells escapes on a spaceship. Important things for some characters have been cut out of other finales, like how Grian viewers would not have known why he was on half a heart the whole time unless they watched the Hermitcraft recap or Mumbo Jumbo's finale. There is also not a consistent shape to everyone's finales. Most people take the route of running or of hunkering down, but everyone does it in a different way. Some people go up, some people go down, some go to other dimensions, and some do whatever the Hermatrix Scout says. The various finales are not quite in contact with one another, mirroring the experience of the season in general, where groups would often have no idea what was going on with other groups until something massive happened or ranks started escalating. Contrastingly, Empires is remarkably consistent in both tone and structure. Despite having 12 people all do finales at the same time, they almost never come into conflict with or contradict each other. As Zornoth himself says in Scott's finale,
"Your friends are trying to stop the destruction of their own empires."
most Emperor's finales are a very solo affair, largely concerned with the damage to their own areas. Their consistency is held in place by the fact that there is not much to be inconsistent about. Something happens to the Empire, and that specific Emperor goes and deals with it. There is only one point of conflict in the finales, with Joey's finale having an alive Zornoth, while Scott kills Zornoth in his finale. However, this can be easily explained in a variety of ways, such as Joey's finale taking place chronologically before Scott's, or with the Zornoth sequence in Joey's finale being something like a dream sequence, which is supported by the fact that the moments with Zornoth have a different filmed style. This consistency remains even in finales that take place with another Emperor. Gemini Tay and Flip's endings are exactly the same, just with slightly different cuts and the necessity of different camera angles, given that they are filming from different accounts. Mythical Sausage's finale includes pearlescent moons within it, and the interaction remains consistent from both sides. It makes sense for consistency to be held so closely in the ending of a season that focused on characters and the actions between them. Although the two series both end with the same type of event, with some kind of apocalypse marking the end of it, they take remarkably different approaches to it, and as such, the stories come across quite differently. Hermitcraft had a creeping apocalypse, one steeped in sci-fi and full of contradiction. Empires had a sudden one, written in fantasy and religion, and intensely aware of its consistency. And yet, neither feels out of place in its story. Both ends fit the stories they belong to, each tone feeling consistent with what came before. So at least the end of the world makes sense.